15 low potassium foods you should include in your diet. Stay tuned. I'm Dr. Blake Schusterman, a board-certified nephrologist and also the cooking doc. Thanks so much for watching today. Take a quick second and like, subscribe, and share this video. And remember, everything we talk about is just for information. This is not medical advice. Seems obvious, but today we're talking about low potassium foods. First, I'll tell you why I chose these foods, the data behind them, and then we'll get into the 15 foods that I recommend. Stay tuned to the end of the video and comment. Tell me your favorite low potassium foods or how you manage your diet and the potassium restrictions or limitations that you have. If you've ever heard me talk about potassium before, you know that most of the scientific data actually supports everyone eating a higher potassium diet. That's right, higher. Consuming lots of potassium can improve blood pressure and lower your risk of stroke. Who doesn't want that? But for some people, high potassium in the blood means you need to limit the amount of potassium that you eat. At least that has been the thought of dietitians and doctors for many, many years. Now, there is a growing school of thought that there may not actually be quite as much of an association between the potassium levels in the blood and the amount of potassium that you eat. Shocking, right? For example, it may be true that things with potassium-based additives or high concentrations of potassium, such as juices, dried fruits, or purees of high potassium foods. Think of things like orange juice or V8. Those things really probably do increase the blood potassium, and they increase them quickly. But maybe certain plant foods that are high in potassium, maybe those foods have other qualities that may not cause the potassium in the blood to rise when you eat them. It's like anything, just when I think the answer is obvious, science throws me a curveball and I've got to adjust. Why do we even care about potassium? Because the consequences of high potassium in the blood are really great because it affects the heart. So we're not giving everyone the all-in. If you're at risk for high potassium, to eat lots of high potassium foods, the risk is just too great. But I'm glad we're moving the discussion forward and the evidence forward. And the more we know, the better we can advise you. Now, back to the food, my favorite part. A healthy low potassium food should give you some other nutritional benefit. For example, ginger ale, it may be a low potassium and low phosphorus food, but let's face it, it isn't making you any healthier in any way. So not necessarily something you should include in your diet. Same with things like angel food cake and white rice. May taste good, but they're not adding additional benefit. So here are the foods I think you should include, whether or not you have kidney disease or at risk for high potassium in your blood. Let's start first with the low potassium fruits. A low potassium diet does not have to limit all fruits. That's very important to know. Here are the 3 that I recommend to my patients. Blueberries, or any berries honestly. Blueberries probably appear on all of my lists, and for good reason. They're high in antioxidants, fiber, and lower in sugar. You can't get a better berry. If they're too expensive, buy the frozen ones, those big frozen bags, and use them the same way. The other fruits I recommend are pears and apples. Both of these can be used in salads, desserts, or snacks when eaten fresh. Though apples and pears both are on the lower side in terms of potassium, they are full of other nutrients and fiber and should be added to your diet. I have a number of recipes on my website, cookingdoc.com, that use these fruits in a variety of different ways. You'll like them. They're really delicious. Next, the veggies. One of the things that got me interested in a kidney healthy diet was that when I started all this, everyone, and I mean everyone, was limiting vegetables to help kidneys. They were thinking that the way to help kidneys is to limit vegetables. Wrong. So some important things to know about vegetables and potassium. It matters whether or not they are fresh or cooked. Cooked vegetables tend to have a higher amounts of potassium per serving size because they shrink down when they're cooked, but they don't lose a lot of their potassium. Hello, spinach. You've seen those spinach videos, right? So sticking with fresh vegetables most of the time is a great strategy. My favorite low potassium vegetables are peas, versatile, great source of plant protein, inexpensive, and I love the frozen version. Kale, not a fad anymore. This green has staying power. Just remember, if you're going to make it taste good, you have to massage it. Massage your kale with love. And a little extra virgin olive oil, and maybe some garlic and a little bit of salt before you use it in your salad. Lastly, cabbage. Cabbage is inexpensive, easy to grow and find, and is delicious both fresh and cooked. Next, let's go to the protein. You probably didn't know this, but many meats are high in potassium. I didn't realize that until I started creating recipes, and they'd end up high in potassium, and I'd ask Dr. Sandra Frank, She's who does my nutrition info. I asked her, where's the potassium coming from? I don't use any tomatoes or potatoes. And I was shocked by how much of the potassium actually came from the meat or the seafood. So if you want to create a dish that has protein but keeps the low potassium nutrition, these 3 foods are great additions. First, tofu. With a few practice reps, you can become an expert tofu chef. Second, canned tuna. Just watch the sodium and the added phosphorus, but I love a couple cans of tuna a week to add to a number of different meals. Great source of protein. And eggs. Though not as cheap as they used to be, the eggs still tend to be an affordable protein source that can be added to just about anything. One of my favorite healthy food categories that we haven't talked about yet is nuts. Nuts show up in multiple studies for their health benefits on multiple organs in the body. Heart, brain, gut, and probably many more. Lots of nuts, though, they're high in potassium. Plus, portion control when eating nuts is really tough. And portion control is key when sticking to a low potassium diet. Say, for example, you eat 2 high potassium nuts, you're probably fine. But if you eat 2 handfuls, you may get in trouble. Lots of nuts are easy to eat. So my 3 favorite low potassium nuts are walnuts, cashews, and peanuts. Between those 3, you should be able to find one that you like and one that you can incorporate into your dishes, snacks, and desserts. Lastly, let's talk drinks. If you're not careful, the things you're drinking can add a lot of potassium to your daily intake. So some of the highest potassium drinks are orange juice, milk, some sports drinks, coconut water, and V8. Those are the things that people typically drink that have a lot of potassium and they may not even be realizing it. So by choosing lower potassium drinks, you may be able to add more potassium to the foods you eat during the day. It's a balancing act. More potassium here, less potassium here. So these drinks I'm going to talk about, they may not be sexy, but sticking to a combination of coffee, brewed tea, and my favorite all-time hydrator, plain water, will keep your beverages low in potassium. I hope you learned something today. These foods are low in potassium, but also contain great nutritional value and are all great additions to any diet. Talk to your medical provider to make sure these are safe for you and watch your portion control when you're eating any of them. Thanks so much for watching today. I'm Dr. Blake Schusterman. I'm a board-certified kidney doctor and I'm also the cooking doc. Head over to my website, cookingdoc.com. I have recipes with a lot of these different foods in them. And check out my book, The Cooking Doc's Kidney Healthy Cooking, a Modern 10-Step Guide to Preventing and Managing Kidney Disease. I will see you next time.